Just wanted to remind some of you, I know that there are a few of you out there that have been playing with the crystal reports and have very efficiently made some of your own. And then there's others of us that we haven't tried it yet. So this is going to be your introduction. Crystal is not a Sage product. Crystal is actually a report writing product. It is currently owned by SAP. It's been passed around over the years to many different companies, but I believe SAP is the current owner. So Crystal can not only be used for Sage, but it can be used for other databases also. It is what they call an ODBC compliant product, so it can read databases and you can set up your reports in it. But for most of us, if we just get a report set up in Sage, we'll be happy. It does ship with your Sage, and you do not have to install it on everybody's workstation, and that's where a lot of people do get confused. They think that they have to install Crystal on every single user's workstation. Well, that is just not true. The only workstations that actually need the Crystal reports installed are for users that will be creating new reports or editing existing reports or forms that are already in the system. All of our other users, there's a piece of Crystal that is loaded when we do workstation setup. It's basically a Crystal reader. Think about it kind of like your Adobe reader. And that's all the majority of your users will need. So let's begin to talk about designing a report. Now, as most of you know, the reports that are in the system can be edited. Although, sometimes they're still not exactly what we need or what we want. So we want to design a report. The hardest part about designing a report is knowing what table to work with. In your minds, we think, oh, I could do that, but gosh, I don't know where to start. Well, where you start is by clicking your resources button here. And what you're going to see in your lower right-hand corner is your file layouts and program information. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this is where, you're going to click on the file layouts right here. And what this does is it opens a window that shows you every module. And then it'll show you each and every table that's within that module. Now today, we're going to do a fairly easy Crystal report. And what I've decided, I need a miscellaneous item report. I want to create a report for my non-inventory items that I have created that are non-stock items. And for those of us who don't have inventory, all of our items are miscellaneous items. So I want to create a report, and I want to show how, what my sales are and who is purchasing these particular items. Now, in your mind, you're thinking, well, I created those items, either I was in sales order when I created them, or I was in accounts receivable when I created them. But believe it or not, they're in a table called, in our common information folder called CI_item. Now, guess what? Not only are miscellaneous items in that table, but also our inventory items are in this table. And this is where sometimes it gets confusing because you don't know what table to choose. And when that happens, just shoot us an email or give us a call, and we'll help you determine the table that the data is retained in. So all of our miscellaneous items and our regular items are in one table called CI_item, and we have a field in here called item type. And the item type determines if it's an inventory or a non-stock. So here's my regular item. That's my inventory item. So an item type of 1 means it's an inventory. And an item type of 5 right here means it's a miscellaneous item. So those are the ones that I'm going to want to work with today. Now, where do I need to go to look for this history? Because I want to see invoice number, I want to see invoice date and customer number and so on and so forth. Well, that's going to be in my accounts receivable. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take a look at my accounts receivable tables here real quick. And my goodness, look how many I have. I got quite a few. When you are designing a report, your very first thing that I want you to get in your brain right now, Sue said this, she told us never to use these tables. Do not use a table that has a WRK. Those are work tables, and they are empty. The program uses these when it creates its own reports, but there is no data in it. Now, when you look at it, you'll think, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I need. That table's got every field that I need in it, except it's empty. So stay away from those tables, all right? Today, I'm going to look at my invoice history header and my invoice history detail. Now, let's take a quick look at the header. Now, the header is giving me a lot of information here. I've got my invoice number. I got sequence numbers. I've got an invoice type, whether it's a credit memo or an invoice or a finance charge, etc. I got my invoice date. I got a lot of the information that I need here, my division number, my customer number, etc. But I also want to look at my detail. So here's my invoice detail table. And this is where my items are. So here's my item code in this table. And here's my item type. Remember, we saw that in CI_item. And here's my number 5 miscellaneous. So yeah, this is the table I'm going to want to use because it's also going to have in it the quantity that my customer purchased and pricing. Here's the unit price and a unit cost. So yeah, this is the table that I want to work with. If you click the print button right here, it will print that table out for you. So I do suggest, until you get to know the tables really well, go ahead and print that out, and then you can use that when you are creating your report and take a look at it so you can know what fields that you're going to pull. Okay, so now I've determined the tables, the 2 tables that I want to use. Now I've got to open up Crystal. Well, what I'm going to do, since I do have Crystal loaded, I'm going to go to my All Programs here, and I'm going to go up to my Sage, and here's my Crystal Reports 2011. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to open up my Crystal. Now, the very first thing that I recommend is that you use the Report Wizard. Now, why do you want to use the Wizard? Well, because it kind of walks you through it, and it helps determine, what am I supposed to do next? So we're going to use the Report Wizard. I'm going to click on it, and the first thing that comes up is, what data do you want? Now, a lot of you see this SOTA Mass 90. You've seen it over the years, and you're kind of like, what? Why do they call it SOTA Mass 90 when I have Sage 100? Well, for those of you that have been using the Sage product for 1.5 million years, like we have, the product previously was called Mass 90 or Mass 200, depending on which version that you had. And SOTA stood for the parent company at that point in time, which was state-of-the-art. And that's where SOTA Mass 90 came from. So now you have an education. You're one step above where most people, you know something most people don't know. So we're going to pull, click on that database, and then we're going to choose the table, or excuse me, the company that I want to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my test company, and I'm going to log in as normal. The next thing that you're going to see is all the tables listed. Remember, we saw that in our file layout. So I'm going to scroll down here to my accounts receivable. I'm in AP right now, and they're all in alphabetical order. And I'm going to choose the 2 tables that I want. I don't want this one. This is the invoice detail and invoice header. So that's live. That's where I'm entering invoices. I want the invoice history detail, and I want the invoice history header. So I'm going to choose those 2 tables, and then I'm going to click on Next. Okay? The links, for the most part, I'm not going to go heavy into the links today because this is a beginner's class, but when you are working with these tables, the linking is very, very important. If you don't have the proper joins, you will not get data, or your data will be repeated. So we'll do possibly another more advanced class at a later time, and we'll go over the joins and what happens when you link your tables improperly. But I'm going to go ahead and click on Next here. Now this is where I'm going to choose my fields. So I have a lot of fields that I want to choose. So here's my invoice history detail table. I definitely want my invoice number. Now I can either double click, or I can click on this little arrow over here. And I know I want my item code, so I'm going to come down here and choose that. I want my item code description. And I'm going to scroll down, and I want the quantity shipped field. Now, the reason why I want quantity shipped, because for those of us who invoice this through sales order, as you know, we can have a quantity ordered or a quantity shipped. Well, I want what's shipped because that was what was on my invoice. If you're going through accounts receivable, it'll still be quantity shipped. And I want my unit price, and I want my unit cost. Okay, and then if I scroll down, I do have an extension amount. Now keep in mind, I can also put a formula in my report that I could take my unit price times my quantity shipped and get the extension amount. But since the field's in here, I'm going to take the easy road today and just go ahead and select that field. Now I'm going to come down here to my header table because I also want out of my header table, I want an invoice type because I want to know, is it a regular invoice, the IN, or is it a credit memo, the CM? So I want that. I also want my invoice date, so I'm going to select that. And since I have divisions, I'm going to choose the divisions and the customer number. I'm going to scroll down, and I do want to grab down here the bill to name because I want to know the name of the customer. I may not be able to easily identify it with the number, so I'm going to also choose the name. Now, when I am at this screen, I kind of try to arrange the fields the way that I want to see them on my report. Now, I can arrange them afterwards, but I think it's easier if I can put them in the order that I want to see them on my report. So I'm going to move these around a little bit, okay? For instance, I want my invoice type up here under invoice number. So I'm just going to highlight it and use my up arrow and move that up there. And then I'm going to also move my invoice date. I want that up there too. And let's go ahead and move my customer information. There's my division number, my customer number, and then, of course, the customer name. So that's going to put it in the order that I want to see them on the report itself. And these are fine. I'm okay with what that looks like. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. Now the next window that comes up is our grouping window. And this is how we're going to kind of group these together. Well, my report, I'm really interested in that item code. So I want to group this by item code because I want to segregate it. So I want to know, if I bought, how many widgets did somebody buy, how many gadgets, et cetera, et cetera. So think of grouping kind of almost kind of like sorting them out. And I can also, the cool thing about that is I can do subtotals that way also. So now I'm going to hit my next field here. And this, once again, I just mentioned the subtotals. And this is summaries. So which fields, the system tries to choose them themselves. Which fields do I want a summary for? Well, quantity, maybe I want a total quantity, which I would think that would be a really good field to have a subtotal for. Definitely I want to leave that there. But price, no, I don't need a subtotal on price. That's a little crazy, so I'm going to take that out. And I'm going to do the same thing with cost. I don't need a subtotal on the cost, but here's my extension amount. So I do want a subtotal on my extension amount. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit my next button. And this is group sorting. So, what do we do with the group sorting? Well, I want it to sort by my item code. I'm not going to change any of these values here now, but in a more advanced class, we'll go over some of what these features actually do. If I hit my next button, now it's a chart. Do I want to add a chart to my report? No. No, this is going to be a down and dirty, easy report, so I'm not going to put a chart in here, although you do see that you can put bar charts, line charts, or pie charts can be embedded within the report. And let's go ahead and hit Next. Now, the Record Selection tab, you actually can filter at this point. Maybe you know that you only want to run this for these particular item codes. So I can choose the item code and then says equal to blah, 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 blah. But I don't want to do that at this point. I want to get all of my data on the report, and then I'm going to filter it down. Now, the problem with doing it that way, though, sometimes is that, boy, some of us have rather large history files out there. So we have to watch it as it, chunks, goes through all of our records to get them on our report. So filtering it does help, not having to wait so long to get through everything. let's go ahead and hit Next, and then you can choose a default template, but I'm not going to do that today. These gives you different form colors and everything. I'm just going to go ahead and hit Finish. Once I hit Finish, here comes my data. Now I've got a bunch of data on this report, and it looks, woo, it's like really hard to read because things are bunched together. They kind of look like they're in weird spots. So this is where the fun really begins, where I call it my cleanup time. This is where we're going to kind of, look at columns, make headers the way that we want to look them and look, see them, and then kind of filter down a little bit. So it's really easy to filter these, or excuse me, to edit these. If I choose a header, I'm going to right-click on the field, and I'm just going to click on Edit Text. So maybe I just want this to be called Code. And here is my this is my invoice number field. So maybe I just want this to say INV, and then there's an NO there. You can't really see it. So what do I need to do? I need to stretch this field out. Now notice when I click on this, I get 4 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as I move my mouse around, I got 2 arrows here. But if I have it in the middle, I've got 4. Well, these 2 allow me to stretch. So I can stretch that field. I want to stretch this field also because, it's cut off a little bit. So I want to be able to see that whole field. And then maybe I want to move this. So since I've got my 4 arrows, we just move it over a little bit here. Okay? So 2 arrows, stretch, 4 arrows. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do, I hope everybody can still hear me okay. I just got a weird message on my GoToWebinar, but hopefully if there's any problems, let me know, guys, okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue to edit here. This is our invoice type, and then here is our invoice date. Once again, I'm going to stretch this out, and I'm going to edit that. And we're going to come here, and we're going to stretch this. And I don't care to have a title for my division, but I do want to move my customer number. Now, you saw where I moved one field at a time over here. If I come down, and I hold the Shift key down on these guys, I can go ahead and move both fields at the same time. You've got to be careful that you don't get it up there too high, otherwise it'll move things around that you don't want moved. Here's my bill to name. I'm going to push this over a little bit too, so it gives myself a little bit more room over here. And then, of course, I want to stretch this out to be able to see the rest of the name. And same here with my, now you see what I just did? Now I want to undo by clicking my undo button. And then let's go ahead and pull that out there so I can see most of the verbiage here. Now, I'm also going to change the name here. Just give it my description and edit this. And I don't care if I have the word ship there. And once again, we're going to edit this to take out the unit. And we're going to do the same thing over here on our cost. And then in my extension, I'm going to edit that. And I'm just hitting the delete key. That's all I'm doing. Or I can change the whole name if I wanted to change the whole name. So here's some, just a few little things that I did here or there. I can probably, let's shorten this up a little bit because it looks like it's kind of pushing up against that other field, and I don't like that. And I think I want to move this over a little bit more to make it give myself a little bit more room over here. Once again, I want both fields, so I'm going to click on that and then move over to the left a little. And then we're going to stretch that out. Okay, now, I also have totals. Remember, we had those totals. So if I hover over the field, it tells me, well, this is the extension amount total, and this is my quantity shipped total. So let's click on this, and I'm just going to drag this over here. And I'm going to drop it there, and I'm going to drag this over here, my quantity field, and I'm going to drop it there. And I'm just going to put the title kind of over here so I know what it is. Now occasionally, see how my fields are kind of off center here. So if I highlight a field and I hold my shift key down, and then maybe I, right click and do align, oops, right, well I did align rights, that'll work still too. You can do align rights, you can do align lefts, but I want these in alignment, and I'm going to align, we're going to do lefts on that one. And see how, oh, I didn't like that, so that went over too far. So see how that, for the, works for the most part, over to get you in the same column. Now, here, I don't have enough room. That's why I've got my hash sign, so I'm going to move that out so I have more totals. Once again, I got to do this here, which is going to kind of mess me up what I did on top, but I need more room. Get some numbers going over here. I'm running out of space. I'm going to be backed up against each other. Okay, so we're going to move things over. And I still need a little more space for this, so I'm going to have to move these fields over a little bit to give this guy more room. But you can see, what you can do to move things around and get it lined up the way that you want it. But one of the things, and yes, Barry, you mentioned in here, one of the users just posted a question, landscape instead of portrait. You absolutely can do that. If you have a report that, the data is just too close together, for one, you can choose a different font. But for two, you can change it to landscape rather than portrait, which is what we're working with today, is portrait. So, that would give you a lot more what they call real estate on your page if you've got to put a lot of data in there. You'll also notice, too, I have, duplicates here. I don't want this duplicated on every single line, so I'm just going to highlight it and take it out. I just hit the delete key. It doesn't mean that it goes away. Obviously, it's still here up top, but I don't need to see it on every line, which at that point, I could start moving stuff over into this area that, was crowded before. So, that works also. Now, the other thing that, you will notice down here is I have these all with the slashes. The slashes are my miscellaneous items. These are my inventory items. I don't want inventory items on my report. So how do I get rid of those? How do I filter those out of here? Right now, I'm going to click on Report, and then select Expert, and then Record. So I'm going to scroll down. See, it's not one of my fields here, but it is a field in my table. And remember, we talked about item type. So I'm going to go ahead and choose item type, and I'm going to say is equal to, and I'm going to put a 5 in there, because 5 is what we used, or what we know was for our miscellaneous items. Now, I can use my save data, which will save me time because it's already chosen all of my data, or I can refresh the data and it goes back through my table and looks at everything again. So here, now, my report only shows me miscellaneous items, okay? No longer do I see those inventory items. I just see my miscellaneous items, okay? Now, but what else is my report doing? Well, it's choosing all of the data in my entire history file. So now I want to add a date criteria where I can tell the system, well, I only want it as of a specific date, because as you can see here, I've got something here in March, I have something here in May, and, of 2010. Remember, I got old data in here, and then also in April 2015. So what do I want to do? I want to add a parameter field. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click on parameter fields, and this little icon up here is the new icon. So go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to call this Invoice Date, and the type is a date. Okay, so I'm going to choose date, and then I'm going to scroll down here at my bottom, and I'm going to say range of values. I'm going to say true, because I want to be able to put in a date range. So I'm going to click OK. Then what I'm going to do is come up here to Report, go to Select Expert, go to Record again, and I'm going to do a new, oh, actually here, right here, invoice date is right there, and I'm going to say is equal to, and I'm going to choose invoice date. Now I'm going to hit OK. Once I do that, it's going to pop up with a window that allows me to change to select those dates. So since my data set is very old, I'm going to actually go back to 2010. I'm going to choose April 1st, and let's go through, let's see, May 31st of 2010, and click OK. So now that March and that April item is gone off of my report. Okay, I still have some crowding going on here, and as this was, live and something I was going to do, to make it fancy and pretty, I would move this stuff over and make it look a lot better than what it does right now. But for the most part, I wanted to show you how to put parameter fields in, and so you can get a selection value in there. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to show you before we save this report is we are working in the preview pane. I like working in the preview pane because I can see my data. I think it's easier to tell if it's crowding each other or not. But there's also the design pane, and that's where some of us are used to going. I still work in this design pane also, but when you open an existing report, this is what you're going to see rather than the preview pane. This is a little intimidating for some people. So that's why I like to work in the preview pane. So this report right now, it's not saved. I've got data, it's not saved. We're going to go up to File, and I'm going to do a Save As. If this report is a report that you want to put on your Sage 100 menu, and you want your other users to be able to run it inside of Sage, you have to put it on the menu. If it's a report you don't want your other users to be able to run, don't put it on the menu, or put it on the menu with security restrictions, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and save it in here, and I'm going to call it Miss Item. And this is very important. If you're going to add it to the menu, you have to add the word custom. And this whole string has to be under 30 characters, or 30 characters and under. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're creating the name. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Save. So now I have saved this report. And if I want to double check myself, I can go out here and I can look at my folder, and there it is. So I know it's there, and I know at this point I can close Crystal and not have to worry about losing my information. So how do I add it to my report? Because I do want my other, or to my menus, because I do want my other users to be able to run this from their report, and I don't want to have to install Crystal on everybody's workstation. So you come to Library Master, and by the way, you do have to have the security rights to do this. So not every user can come in and add a report to a menu. Keep that in mind. They have to have the rights within role maintenance to do this. So you're going to go to Setup, and you're going to go to Report Manager. And when you're in Report Manager, you just click down here where it says Add Report to Menu. This is really easy. You just click on Next, and then you say, well, which modules do you want to add this report to? Well, I want to add it to Accounts Receivable. And then where is the report currently? Well, currently it's on my C drive, so let's get there. And let's go to my demo folder, and here's my report right here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that report. And then from the menu, what do I want to call this? Well, I'm going to call this Miscellaneous Item Report. Okay? And now I'm going to click on Next. Well, the next screen says, okay, your users are assigned specific roles. What users do you want to have rights to this report. And I just had a question come in, does the user need access to the demo folder to run the report? Or in your case, whatever folder that you have created the report in. And the answer to that question is no, because when you add it to the reports menu, it actually makes a copy of it and it puts it under the Sage folder. So no, they do not need the rights to your original folder where you had the report. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my super and my level 1 user, and then I'm going to choose next, and now I'm going to choose finish. And what you'll see is it's processing the menu, and then my menu item, my menu closed on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm now going to reopen my menu, and I'm going to go to Custom Reports. And there it is. There's my miscellaneous item report. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and say OK. And what you're going to see the very first time you go to access this report, it's going to tell you that it needs to be converted. Don't ask me. You are already at the latest, but I think what it's particularly doing is setting it up to work on our menu properly and giving you the prompts and everything that you need. So we're going to go right back here just like we did before, and we're going to choose the date. We're going to go ahead and put it through to today. So you can see that we have data, and voila, we have data. All right, so now if I was going to go ahead and work on this report again, would I go out to that demo folder? No. Maybe I would need it, to clean it up, make it look a little nicer. No. I'm going to come back here to my setup, go to my report manager, and now if I go to accounts receivable, I go to custom, and there's my miscellaneous item report. And I can click on my Maintain button. And now it opens up my report, and I can make some of the cleanup changes that I wanted to make. Note when I do a file save as here, remember Barry's question a few minutes ago, do they have to have rights to that original folder? The answer is no, because where is it? It's actually sitting underneath your Mass 90 reports folder. So it took a copy of that original report that was on my C drive, and it's now in my reports folder underneath my Sage 100. So if I scroll down here, you're going to see in my M's here that I've got that report. There it is. Okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now, if we wanted to gather some data again, let's go ahead and let me put myself back in 2010 because I know I have more data there. And then we're going to go ahead and choose through today and say OK. And voila, my preview pane comes back up, and I can work in here again. Okay? So that's how you add it to your menu. That is how you edit it once it's there. Keep in mind, if you edit the one on the C drive, those edits aren't going to be on the one that's in your Sage 100. So you got to be really careful with that. Now, what I personally like to do, I make a backup of them, even though it's under my Sage 100 reports folder. I still have my own little crystal folder, and I put them in there, and I like to know that I've got an extra copy of them, but that's just me because stuff happens sometimes, and it scares me, and I want to make sure that I've got all my reports. These reports, just like any other reports or forms, will have to be updated once, if you do a system, like a Sage 100 upgrade, the first time you go in them, it's going to ask you to update those all, again. The other thing that I want you to keep in mind when you create a crystal report, although it shouldn't happen to us nearly as often as what it was in these last few years, but sometimes our tables change. And when our tables change, sometimes the fields within the tables change, and we have to rewrite the reports. We have had reports where the table the name was the same, but the field within the table changed, so our report suddenly didn't work, and we have to go back in and choose the new field name that Sage gave it rather than the old field name. And often they'll do that in order to make it work within multiple modules. Okay, so that's really your basic Crystal report writing. For our bonus round tonight, I do want to mention to you that any reports that you have on your menu are customizable. But, well, with the exception of a couple modules, job cost being one of them, work order being another. But what I want to highly recommend, if you are going to customize a report, don't customize the one that says standard. Okay, if you want to change some criteria, make it landscape, make your fonts larger or whatever, when you come into a canned, we're going to call it a canned report from the system, I always choose my save as, and then call it something else, and maybe I might want to make it my default report, maybe I don't. Click OK, but then I go into Designer. So don't customize your one that says Standard. That's just kind of a rule of thumb for me. See how intimidating this can be for us sometimes, though, and that's why a lot of people get freaked out when they start working with the Standard reports. They're actually not as scary as it looks, but you can customize any report that is on this menu. Okay, another question just came through. Do you have any documentation instruction manuals for future reference? Well, yes, actually we do. Every time we do a Tech Tuesday, I will always send you out the documentation that I have put together in order to do the Tech Tuesday. So be looking within a day or so, usually within 24 hours, except last time I know I forgot, and I think I just got it to you guys the other day. And if I do forget, don't worry about offending me. Email me and say, hey, we haven't gotten that Tech Tuesday info yet, which is exactly what a client did to rattle my brain and remind me that I had forgotten to send it out. The other thing that for you to know, we do record these sessions. For those of you that this is your first time with us, we do record these sessions, so if you have users that were unable to attend or halfway through somebody came in and grabbed you and you had to leave, we put the recorded sessions out on our website under the Tech Tuesdays, and the documentation will be out there too. Okay, I have another question. If you do a save as and choose default, will that be the only default for that? Will that be only the default for that particular user? No. The answer is no, because when I come in here, and you'll notice that we made it a public rather than a private. So since I made it public, all my other users can see that report if I choose to give them rights to do that. Now, keep in mind, sometimes you don't want other users to see it, and I believe we can. I'll have to check to double check to be sure that I'm not telling a lie here, but I believe we can also secure it so that only specific users can see it. If we, otherwise you might want to make it a private so that users that you don't want to see it can't see it. So, guys, keep the suggestions coming for the Tech Tuesdays. As I've said a million times before, the more you know, the more it empowers you to use your product at a higher and better level and get more information out of it. A few of you have been sending me over emails of, hey, we'd like to see this, we'd like to see that. I am seriously considering doing a bank rec Tech Tuesday because I've had 3 or 4 of you within the last month start to use the bank rec module for the first time. And there's some challenges when you first start up. And there's also some new features on how to get things into the bank rec module. It'd be maybe kind of fun to do something like that. But wrapping this up for today, I also invite you to look at our website. We do have a Crystal Report catalog out there. We have some reports that we have designed over the years that are available for purchase. And also, if you are designing a report and you get stuck, we are always here for tech support. And sometimes for some of us, this just isn't our bag. So if you get in there and you start trying to use it and you're like, man, this isn't for me, give Suzanne a call. Suzanne has designed some extremely nice reports for our clients. She can do it very quickly. Although I gotta tell you, sometimes the reports are very detailed and they do take a while to make. So it's not a 30-minute project. Sometimes it does take an hour or 2 hours or so in order to get everything that you need. Oh, Barry asked another question. Can the results be downloaded to Excel? And the answer to that question is yes. Let's take a quick run through that before we finish for the day. Oops, hit print on accident. Hold on. Let me get on out of here real quick. We'll just grab a date because otherwise I get this weird error. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I accidentally printed it. You probably hear my printer in the background. Okay, when you hit preview on your Crystal report, and what you're going to see is a little export button. And this is really on any Crystal report, but Crystal reports don't always go really well out to different programs. But if you click this little export button, I always think it looks like a flying saucer or something. It's a really weird looking icon. So you click on that, and you can actually choose your Excel. I like to choose data only, and you choose application, and then say OK. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and click OK here. You'll notice that it opened Excel. And here are my fields. Let me get this open a little bit. So it does, when I'm going out to Excel, I personally prefer to do a report that everything's all on one line. But this is what it looks like when you go out to Excel. We actually have edited some of the aging reports in order to go out to Excel for other clients because our accountants love them in Excel. It drives the rest of us crazy because you have to get all those blank lines out of there because, like I said, Crystal does not necessarily go out to Excel really, really easily. Here's a bonus round 2 for you there, going out to Excel. So this is what I had for you today. And if there's anything else or any other questions, feel free to shoot us an email. I would love to answer those questions for you. And otherwise, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to sending you the information, and everybody have a wonderful day. Bye now.